Wrestling fans have to deal with more tragedy than any fan base should ever have to deal with. We've dealt with a lot. But I don't think anything can prepare you for the horrifying news that we all received together on Thursday, August 24th, 2023, as the wrestling world lost Bray Wyatt. Unexpectedly, it hasn't really sunk in yet. We were here together. We were doing our all-in predictions. By the way, tomorrow's going to be a phenomenal show. I'm ready for it. And we were up here doing our all-in predictions on Thursday, tributing Terry Funk. We spent half of the podcast talking about Terry, remembering his career, his great moments. And we were moving on to our next subject. I think we were talking about AEW Dynamite. Chat starts going nuts. Start seeing all the same stuff. Bray Wyatt's passed away. It's really tough to kind of process that when you're live on camera. I'm thinking maybe people are trolling. Maybe somebody's screwing around. Then you go over to the Twitter machine, confirm it. Sean Ross Sapp, Triple H, anybody else credible that can offer information on this, revealing that Bray Wyatt passed away unexpectedly at the age of 36. And we just dealt with something like this a few months back with Jay Briscoe and how hard that was, and how hard a lot of these type of tragedies and deaths have been for us as fans for the past several decades now, it feels like. Now, the one I kind of remember that kind of got the ball rolling on this, or at least the first 10-bell salute I can remember, similar to what they did last night on SmackDown with the roster on the stage, would have been Brian Pillman coming up on 26 years ago now. And I remember how that affected me, how I was not really used to having a current roster member pass away. That's not something that we saw very often. I was old enough to remember, some of the Von Erich deaths, Bruiser Brody, Eddie Gilbert, and maybe a couple of others, Adrian Adonis. But even those guys were, kind of not around at the time. Maybe Joey Morella from 1994 would be the one that sticks out to me that I really remember. But it feels like once Brian Pillman happened, it felt like it was a regular thing. And I want to thank everybody who's reached out over the past 48 hours, sent me a DM. There's been a lot of you, actually. Hey, Greg, hope you're doing okay. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I'm fine. Trust me. I should be the one sending you guys these messages, because many of you may not have been through this as many times as I have, because it did feel like this was becoming way, way too common. And a lot of these stories were, kind of avoidable ones, drug abuse, lifestyle choices, things like that, wound up taking the lives of some of these, not all, but some of these men and women way, way, way too early. You think about somebody like Miss Elizabeth and some stories like that. But then every now and then you get a couple of cases like Brody Lee and Bray Wyatt, who just got dealt a rough hand of health at the end. Both fell gravely ill. And Bray Wyatt, it has been reported and been permission was given to report that he did suffer a heart attack. I guess we have been speculating, wondering. I've had no clue. We've been talking about it for the past few months about what's going on with Bray Wyatt. We knew it was some sort of a health issue, but we didn't really know what. We found out recently, apparently whatever the issue was severe, and I guess it was a heart issue. He contracted COVID earlier on in the year that I guess exacerbated some heart issues that he already had. He was recovering and doing well from that, and I guess suffered a heart attack at age 36 and died on Thursday. And probably one of the most gut-wrenching deaths I think fans are probably going to have to deal with. I've seen a lot of comparisons already to Eddie Guerrero. And I've always said throughout the years when we talk about wrestlers passing away, I've always said that what I went through with Owen felt like what the generation after me went through with Eddie, even though there was only 6 years difference there. The generation that I consider, one younger than me, really looks fondly at Eddie the same way I did Owen, even though their careers, overlapped a bit. And Owen's not a whole lot older than Eddie or anything like that. It was just, it just felt like that was that generation's Owen was what happened to Eddie because of how sad that was. And then, of course, the tragedy of Chris Benoit a couple of years later, which we don't even want to talk about today. And then we had Jay Briscoe just a few months back, tragically passing away in that car accident, and AEW having to deal with him and that death after having to deal with the Brody Lee stuff and that locker room. In its short history of AEW, they've already suffered some horrible blows. The wrestling world in general has. Now here in WWE, this is, you guys have to correct my history here. Is this the first main roster death since Benoit? I know some other guys, Umaga, Lance Cade, and others, Ashley Mazzaro, maybe some others that passed away very young. I don't think any of them were in the company, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I feel like this is the first main roster star to pass away unexpectedly in the middle of their careers since then, in about 15 or 16 years. To me, the Benoit stuff and the Eddie stuff feels like yesterday, but a lot of time has passed now. A lot of time has passed to the point where, somebody who might have been 8 years old when Eddie Guerrero passed away is, now what, 25 or something? Completely different story. And it just feels like it never ends. On Thursday, before we got the news, I was talking about Terry Funk, and one of the things I was saying about his career, and by the way, if you want to hear my thoughts on Terry Funk and his career and his passing, that is on our latest content playlist right now on the channel, along with AEW predictions. We were up here talking about Terry Funk before we even found out about Bray Wyatt. I think I was one of the only people to get up, was able to come up here and get some thoughts or a tribute out on Terry Funk before Bray Wyatt's passing. Now, a lot of maybe YouTubers and WWE last night found themselves in a situation of having to remember them both at the same time. I'm almost glad that I don't have to come up and talk about both of them. I can focus on one at a time. And luckily on Thursday, we were able to focus on Terry before we knew about Bray Wyatt. But one of the things I said about Funk was that, he died almost 80 years old. And Terry Funk never had, even though he was crazy, he was the good kind of crazy. And his death doesn't have a cloud of tragedy over it, like so many others that have passed away, a lot of them young or under really, really unfortunate circumstances, was something that we've just seen way too many times. And with Terry, it was just old age. It was just health. I think he might have been suffering from dementia there. The last birthday, or the last picture of him earlier this summer, a couple of months ago, on his birthday, he did not look like Terry Funk at all. He was definitely starting to deteriorate. And so his death, didn't kick you in the stomach the way Jay Briscoe's did, or Eddie's did, or Bray Wyatt's would on Thursday. So, it was nice to be able to remember and celebrate Terry Funk's career, because he lived a long life, he lived a long career, and he gave back like no one has ever given back before in the history of the business. So we were able to talk about him and not be too somber about it. Yes, the wrestling world lost one of its biggest icons, but that biggest icon gave us, an incredible, remarkable career and a huge legacy. And it felt good to not have an all too common cloud of tragedy hanging over the Funker's death. And I said that in the podcast, how much I was pleased that we didn't have to talk about something tragic or gnarly. And then we didn't even get out of the podcast before something tragic and gnarly happened. And now here we sit talking about Bray Wyatt, and a tragedy and a death that is really sending ripples through the wrestling world, because even more so than Jay Briscoe, I think Bray Wyatt has some sort of a relationship or interaction with just about every single wrestler currently wrestling for either company right now. Bray Wyatt's been around, since 2009 when they brought him into FCW. Think of the people that he's crossed paths with in AEW alone, the Claudios, the Moxleys, the Miros, all the people that were around at that time that might still be wrestling now or might be big stars. A lot of people into basically the entire roster of WWE. And I would say, to venture a guess, I don't know, 60 to 70% of the AEW roster probably knows Bray Wyatt or has worked with him before. That's a lot. So this affects everyone. I've been thinking way more about, first of all, his family. I have to echo LA Knight's sentiments from last night. I feel like I was handling everything relatively fine. Until you realize his kids, 4 of them. And that's rough. But you know, Bray Wyatt, for everything that, he brought, the amount of relationships he's like built currently. That's kind of what's different maybe about this one than it might have been about Jay Briscoe or even a Terry Funk, even though a lot of people know Terry Funk too. Wyatt, he's a current star. He's 36 years old. He came up with or worked with just about everybody in the wrestling business right now. So I think about them, like I said earlier, I appreciate everybody sending me messages and stuff, but it's not me. I feel bad, obviously, sadness that we've lost someone, but I feel saddest for the people that knew him, his family, his friends, his kids, his wife, all of that stuff. 4 children now have to grow up without a father. Just like, Brody's kids have to go through the same thing. And this is not an uncommon thing, unfortunately. Oge and Othena, Owen's kids, Owen passed away when they were little. Brian Pillman Jr. was just a toddler when Brian Pillman died. This is way, way too common. And now I feel like, 4 more kids have been left without one parent, one of their parents. And that's just heartbreaking, especially when you're the one you lost is so larger than life, the way Bray Wyatt is. And the photos of him and his family, just still shots, show and really convey that love that he has for his family, and how really at the end of the day, that's all that was important to him. And that's why things like this are just really hard to swallow. And it's half sad, it's half frustrating, because, as a 46-year-old, somebody who's been watching wrestling as long as I have, and way back in 2012, 11 years ago now, one of the videos that really helped get me a ton of subscribers on this channel was a deceased wrestlers video that I did. That's no longer available because there's a ton of copyright stuff on it. But think about how many people we talked about in that video 11 years ago, and how much it's changed just since then. How many names would have to be added to the list if I was ever able to find the time. We might be able to crowdfund this, but for me to be able to redo something of that level would take a lot of time, and a lot of time away from my job. So maybe one day we can get that done. Maybe even in the meantime, I'll put up that other video for the members and the Patreon subscribers on Vimeo. For those of you who are members of the channel and Patreon supporters, you get a lot of exclusive content over there. Maybe I can repost that as a little bit of a memory. But just think about how many more names we've lost since 2012. This is my point. And this is just, it's unfair. It's not right. I feel horrible for everybody that knew him, and his friends and his family. And last night on SmackDown, the roster standing there, and then they go to the video package and they come back to show this, sitting on the stage as the roster is just visibly destroyed, sobbing, as the chair sits there empty, the lights go down, and then it's just the chair by itself. I mean, it was something else, man. I just felt very, very bad, specifically for a lot of the talent on that stage, because, you knew that just had to be absolutely gut-wrenching. Got a chance to see a few of the social media tributes. The one from Seth Rollins was specifically moving. But you think about all of them, you're trying to, think about memories and your relationship with these people, trying to tribute them and offer thoughts on them the best you can. I know Alexa Bliss wanted to be at the show last night. She wasn't able to make it. So, you feel like you feel for them, because they're the ones with all this emotion. They knew him. They interacted with him. They broke bread with him. We were just fans of his. I never had a chance to meet Bray Wyatt. Maybe some of you did, but I never had a chance to meet him. Would have loved to, though. I think I saw him wrestle a couple times, but never got a chance to meet him. But those who did, cherish those pictures. But he was somebody that, like I said, had some sort of a relationship with pretty much every wrestler in the business in North America right now. And that's why his death is, carries so much weight, is because of the impact it has, or it had. It's all that dominated YouTube and social media over the past couple of days. I pulled off the part of the podcast on Thursday where we found out about Bray Wyatt. I pulled that off and posted it. Got like 20,000 views in 2 hours. Everybody just rushing to the internet to find out as much as they can, or to reminisce, or to remember, or to cope, or whatever. Um, but Bray Wyatt, passing away is just it's just something we don't fucking deserve, man. And nobody does, and it's frustrating. But anyway, welcome everyone. Good to see you. Happy Saturday to you. I had originally planned a members only Saturday night's main event watch along for today, but I canceled that and instead decided to do a Bray Wyatt tribute since I really haven't commented on this since we found out live together. I said that we've had some breaking news happen during podcasts or streams before, but that is easily the biggest news that's ever broken during one of our shows, is to find out that Bray Wyatt died. And you see my reaction. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I didn't know what to say. I was literally without speech. It took me 2 days to put something together to finally come up here and actually talk about him. And I'm still nearly without speech. But we're going to do our best to talk about him here today. I'm going to review SmackDown from last night. We'll talk about memories in the chat, answer these super chats. Looks like there's a bunch of them. Thank you for that. I'll get to those right away. And we'll review SmackDown, and then we'll talk a little bit about Bray Wyatt's career, the highs and the lows, because I was very vocal this year. Shoot, I don't know if I have time to screen cap a quick tweet, but I was very vocal about Bray Wyatt this year, specifically from a creative standpoint, because last year with the White Rabbit and the QR codes and that debut, that re-debut in the Uncle Howdy, that was all extremely intriguing to me. I was so happy to see Bray Wyatt back, and it really felt like it started sputtering out there for a minute. And then when you go into the Royal Rumble and you have the Mountain Dew match with LA Knight, I didn't like any of that. I was very vocal that I did not like that match, and I still don't. And it was disappointing for me. And then it was right before WrestleMania when Bray was supposed to work with Bobby Lashley, another feud that I did not like because I thought they had way more stuff creatively figured out for Bray Wyatt and the Uncle Howdy stuff. And to move into a feud with Lashley now felt kind of thrown together, and I really wasn't interested in seeing it anyway. And then it didn't happen. And all we knew was that Bray Wyatt was dealing with some issues. And I put up a tweet. I meant to screen cap it here. Put up a tweet right before WrestleMania, and I said something to the effect of, it's really hard to balance, a tweet with love and care and concern for a performer that you love and care about, while also voicing frustrations with the creative direction of that character. And all I cared about was, I hope Bray Wyatt's mind and body are okay, was the last thing I said in that tweet. It turned out that maybe his body wasn't so okay after all. And, I feel a little bad maybe for giving it such a hard time. I think I was having trouble distinguishing the creative frustrations with what's going on actually in Bray Wyatt's life. Because we heard he was dealing with some issues, but last time we saw him on TV, he was really losing a creative direction after a really strong, rebirth. So I think I was almost like kind of jaded over it, where I was, pessimistic, like, well, I don't even care if he comes back or not at this point, because I didn't really love the way everything ended. And now if he comes back again, you're talking about yet another repackage after The Fiend and after the Uncle Howdy. Maybe he's going to come back as something else. There was so much optimism at the beginning of the year. The Undertaker whispering in his ear on that Raw show was like, was that a passing of the torch? Whether it was or not, I'm actually really glad they had that moment now. Think about Bray Wyatt's return promo last year when he came back right after Extreme Rules. And I think that promo hits a lot different now when you look at it. And when he came back on, I think it was at SmackDown, and he talked to the fans as him, it was the first time really in his entire career where we felt like we were talking about the man. We were hearing from the man, Bray Wyatt, or Wyndham Rotundo. And he felt very genuine in what he was saying. He thanked the fans for sticking with him, and was kind of cryptic too in what was going on with him personally and his ups and downs and stuff. And when a lot of people consider that his best promo ever. All of those hours of rambling is the Wyatt family character and everything else he did, because his promos are very long. And, many consider that one that he did when he debuted to be his best one ever, because it really felt genuine and it felt real. And it was the first time we really saw him with that, veil pulled back. And a lot of people now are looking back on that as almost like a really sad day now when you look at his promo and hear the emotion in his voice and, kind of feel what he might be going through that we don't know about. and here we are, not even a year after he returned at Extreme Rules last year. He's passed away, and that's just absolutely gutting. But anyway, thank you for being here, guys. Hope you guys are having a great Saturday. We're going to talk for about the next hour here about SmackDown and Bray Wyatt's career. But before we do that, I'm going to head over here to the chat and see what you guys have to say. Welcome you, knock out these super chats. Thank you, moderators. If you are dealing with anybody, I will. Oh no, message retracted. Okay. Not deleted. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Let me scroll all the way back up here. While I'm doing that and finding the first supers, could you smash that thumbs up button for me? I'd really appreciate it. If you're watching this video right now and you're not a subscriber, please do. We are on the road to 40,000 subscribers. Should be there pretty soon, but I need your help. Click that subscribe button, and thank you so much for that. Let's start with Jay Lambo earlier on. Thank you for the $9.99, my friend. Sending love to the Wyatt, sending love to the family of the Wyatts and to you and the chat. Hope you guys are well. Same to you, Jay Lambo. I hope everybody has been dealing with this and coping, as best they can. If one way to cope is to watch Bray Wyatt footage and relive memories, I hope you're doing that. If your way to cope is just to separate yourself from it, I can understand that too, because I myself have done that. I did that after Eddie Guerrero's death. I basically checked out until WrestleMania 22. From the time he died in November, I was like, I'm done. I'm sick of these guys dying. And I was kind of pissed, to be honest. And then I kind of peeked my head back in when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And same year, Brett went in. So that was the only thing that really brought me back. But yeah, I had kind of the same feeling with Eddie there. But thanks, Jay Lambo, very much. Spectra, thank you so much for being with me for a year. Using my milestone chat for Bray. This one, it hurts. Benoit, Brody, Briscoe, they all hurt. But Bray, this one feels like when Eddie died. Yeah, I'm constantly rewatching his Fiend, Alexa Bliss stuff. That was good stuff, man. I'm going to try to shout out the channel members as well. Isaac, good to see you. Ronnie, good to see you, man. So much. Tatanani, Mike Rouse is in the house as well. K-Dogs Kennel. Yeah, I mean, a lot of you, I've been seeing comments like that very frequently. This is the first one that, legitimately hurts, and it's true. It really does. I'll just hit everybody here. Good to see Daniel as well. William Cullen, Maka International. We got David Brown, JL in the house. Welcome. FRGN. Good to see you, man. So happy you're here. You've probably got some Bray Wyatt stuff on your channel as well, I would assume. Crazy J is in the house. We've got Michael Cuomo. Happy to see you. 7th season. Ben Espinoza and Divine Ricks chiming in with 5. It's bittersweet how everyone in the wrestling community coming together for Bray Wyatt. Doesn't matter if you're an AEW fan or a WWE fan. Rest in peace, Bray Wyatt. And that's true. We did see, AEW put out a statement offering condolences to Bray Wyatt. And like I said earlier, Bray Wyatt has worked with just about everybody in the wrestling business. There's a lot of people in AEW who not only knew Bray, but worked with him directly, or maybe even came up with him and got into business with him. So he, there's no tribal lines in something like this. Everybody really should be coming together. And, and I hope that tomorrow at All In, the talent says, let's do this one for Wyatt. Let's do this let's do this one for Wyndham, win one for the Wyndham, and just go out there and, put on the best show they can just as a tribute to him and to Terry Funk and to Brody Lee and to Jay Briscoe. Think about that. Brody, Jay, and Bray, in the AEW and WWE locker room, losing those 3 guys in a short amount of time, that's a lot. That's a lot of tragedy for people to expect to bear, so maybe tomorrow night people can use that as a motivation to really deliver a hell of a show for 80,000 fans. It's going to be interesting to see if we get some Bray Wyatt tributes from the audience. Maybe they're going to sing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. I know Bray Wyatt's a WWE character, but this is wrestling here. Really, at the end of the day, we're all family here, even though the tribal dumb shits don't understand that. Really at the end of the day, like MJF said recently, this tribal nonsense doesn't exist in the locker room. There's no, the wrestlers in AEW don't hate the wrestlers in WWE. That's not the way it works. And you're a fucking fool if you think that. And everybody, in the wrestling community coming together to tribute Bray Wyatt is what we would expect out of professionals, because they're professionals, we're fans, and some of the fans are insufferable. MH Nova, good to see you. Yes, today was also the death of Bob Barker. Thanks for bringing that up. I was going to. I'm almost embarrassed to say this. I kind of Mandela affected him. I thought he already passed. I swear to you, I'm not even kidding. I would have sworn, I remember that story from a couple of years ago. I get he did not. He lived to be 99, same age as Betty White. I feel like a shithead for saying that, but I'm just trying to be honest. When I saw the news today, I was like, oh, I actually thought he already passed. And he was an icon. I'm going to be 46 years old in less than 2 weeks, and I'm old enough to remember Bob Barker with brown hair. And hearing that theme song, watching The Price is Right with my grandma's house when I was a little kid. If I ever played hooky from school, get to watch Price is Right in the summertime. Price is Right. Bob Barker was a huge part of me, growing up, and the fact that he did it so long and stuck around as long as he did before finally retiring is pretty incredible. Of course, he did make an appearance in WWE, bitched out Chris Jericho, beat the hell out of Adam Sandler in Happy Gilmore. Bob Barker was a legend, and he was a funny guy into his old age. He reminds me of Betty White because they're such icons, but yet they have such a great, more modern sense of humor. Betty White was, hilarious all the way to the end, and so was Bob Barker. And I hope the two of them are having a drink together right now because Bob was the man. So rest in peace, Bob Barker. Big loss today, right after, in the same week that we lose Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. A lot of people, I guess that the rule of three, hopefully we're done for a while because technically Bob does have a wrestling tie. So he could complete the threesome. So let's hope, at least for a little while, we can fucking breathe here and not have any tragedy for a little while. If that's all right? My God. Don't trust people. Hello. Good to see you as well. Angie Law, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here and appreciate the $4.99. My heart is broken. Life is so unfair. I just feel cheated out of such greatness. This one hits different. Prayers to his family and friends. I feel the exact same way. I cannot express properly the amount of sorrow that I feel. I don't think you guys can either. Tomas, good to see you, my friend. Tomas is a great dude. Met him during WrestleMania. Been a guest with you and Zach twice already on your channel. I know we have to come up with a Halloween Havoc coming up in October. I'll give that some thought, I promise. But Tomas is here, dropping in $19.99. Thank you so much, dude. If there's one thing I ask of everyone these next 2 weeks is just enjoy pro wrestling. Exactly. Appreciate every man and woman that steps through the curtain next 3 pay-per-views because you don't know when the last time you'll see them will be. Exactly. That hug after the match might be the last hug, and that's something that's far too common in wrestling. And I just kind of got done saying the same thing that Tomas did, is that I think a lot of the AEW talent tomorrow and for WWE coming up at Payback, and I'm sure Monday Night Raw on Monday will have a fair amount of emotion to it. They're not just going to not mention Bray Wyatt. There's probably going to be a complete full other tribute. They'll probably do the 10 bell. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. There's a lot of Raw stars that weren't at SmackDown last night that maybe want to have a chance to, remember him too. So I think that Wyatt will have a big influence on Monday's show. But for the AEW talent tomorrow, heading into their biggest show of their lives, and many of them were traveling or over there dealing with the all-in stuff while getting this news of Bray Wyatt's death. It really had to shake them because they're not in their environment. I got to find out sitting right here in my chair in the room that I'm most comfortable in is where I found the news. I wasn't in an airport or in an airport bathroom or having lunch with friends or doing media or doing an interview with Denise Salcedo or something like that. I was here. So everybody in wrestling who wrestles should use these deaths as motivation to tribute them and put on the best show you can. And wrestling fans should just do their best to enjoy. Truer words have never been spoken, Tomas. Thank you so much. Crazy Jay, good to see you as well. Steve Jacobson is in the house. We got Ron Stout. Yeah, I'm around your age, Greg, and I've also dealt with this a number of times. I don't think you can ever be used to death of a wrestler, especially a current one. And that's something that I've echoed for the last, 13 years on this channel. I've said it's hard to put into words and describe, what it was like to hear about just death after death after death. And I just, no matter how many of these you go through, didn't make Jay Briscoe and Brody Lee and Bray Wyatt any easier whatsoever. Hell no. You can't. I mean, it might numb you a little bit. But for the most part, nothing really prepares you. Trey, thank you for that. This is the first one, apparently, since Chris Benoit, the first active member roster to die in WWE since Benoit. And of course, it happened pretty recently with AEW and Brody Lee. Spaz Phoenix, thank you so much, dude. Appreciate you being here. Shout out to Damon Smith above you there from Charleston, South Carolina. Love that city. Spaz, appreciate the 20, my friend. I was there to see The Fiend debut. That's right, you were. I was there to see The Fiend debut at SummerSlam in Toronto. It was the best thing I've seen live 8 days ago in the same building with a few fans watching Edge and Sheamus, and Wyatt returns to attack Edge. Everyone smiled. Yeah, the Fiend debut at SummerSlam, he faced Finn Balor, right? And that was when he really had his first full entrance with the remix of the Wyatt family song with the hard rock metal version of it, the decapitated lantern head, the whole thing. I remember just gushing over it and being like, this is great shit. But as we would see creatively, they would shit the bed with that too. And I blame one person and one person only, Vince the Mustache McMahon. But Spaz, thank you so much for that 20. Good to see. I got you already. Got these shout outs. Spaz has 20 more. A couple super chats after that. Thanks for that, dude. Let's knock out this one and the next one, and then we'll start talking about last night's SmackDown. Thank you for that, Spaz. 20 more after Greg is done putting better words than I could to this sad week. If you're looking for a distraction, I do have an all-in preview up, as well as a booking pod about what the Mania 40 probably main event should be. Mania 4, I think it should have been Savage and Steamboat, but or they should have had a second round match, and then it should have been Savage and Hogan in the main event. But no, WrestleMania 40 main event, fun stuff. Go check out Spaz's channel for all of that. And thank you again, Spaz, for being here. Good to see Sean Swabby, Nick Steele in the house. The Juliet is here. Straight Edge Mondo. Glad you are here as well. Dwayne Phillips is in the house. We have MH Nova. I think I got you. Spectra chiming in with 10. Appreciate that, my friend. My wife doesn't watch wrestling, but when I told her about Bray, she lost it too. Watching the tribute together, we both cried our eyes out. Bray will always light my way. I've let him in. So have I. That SmackDown tribute, man, was rough. I knew it was going to be. I had to go after we found out on Thursday. I had to go straight to work, and I was not feeling good. I was hot. I was sweaty. I was trying to focus on work. Plus, it was a busy and hectic night. All I wanted to do was sit down and think. I still had not had time. I mean, I was scrambling to get out the door just to put up one Bray Wyatt thing on YouTube before I left. And I get to work, and I can't really sit and process anything. I just had to work. And then it wasn't until I came home that I was able to kind of, okay, breathe, take a shower, relax, and just settle in. And then finally last night, being able to come home and watch SmackDown, it was rough watching that video package, but I knew, I put on Twitter, I think the night before, I'm like, I'm just sitting here thinking about the fucking masterpiece that WWE's video production crew is putting together right now for Bray Wyatt that we're going to see on SmackDown. And they did a beautiful job. Thanks again, Spectre, for that. I think that knocks out all the supers. We should probably get into SmackDown now, and then we'll talk a little bit about Bray Wyatt and share any other memories you guys might want to share in the chat. I'll scroll back and read through some more of these chats here in a bit, but we should start talking about last night's Friday Night SmackDown, which, of course, was going to be centered heavily around a tribute to Bray Wyatt, but was probably originally centered around a tribute to Terry Funk. Michael Cole welcomes us from ringside with the ring and the roster and the Tron in the background. And on the Tron, it has a in memoriam graphic for Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk. And Cole says that we are here to tribute, but we are here to entertain. And he announced their deaths officially and said that they're going to do the traditional 10-bell salute. Excuse me. So as they're doing the 10-bell salute, the roster is on the stage, of course. And one of the first things and the most noticeable things about the entire roster there was standing next to Triple H was Eric Rowan and Braun Strowman. But Eric Rowan specifically, who's currently not under contract to either company. AEW brought him in when Brody Lee died. And he got in the ring, and if you remember, I think that was during the pandemic, right? Or maybe it was before that. I forgot when that was. Yeah, it was during the pandemic. So it was 2020. And when he got in the ring, you could see he was just choked up, just noticeably choked up. And a lot of fans were mentioning his name yesterday, too, on social media. Hope he's doing all right. This is two now of his friends, because maybe many would argue he probably had a closer relationship with Wyatt and Harper, or Wyatt and Brody, than Strowman did. But it was very cool to see Strowman there as well, along with Triple H and along with Cody, right up front for the 10 bell, which was hard to watch. And then they went into the amazing Bray Wyatt video package, which we knew was going to be a little bit gut-wrenching. And LA Knight put it best in his promo at the end of SmackDown, where he said, watching that, was handling it just fine until the pictures of the kids came and that type of stuff, and how heartbreaking it is for them, and how you really have to think about them. I mean, we were all, think about how good AEW was to -1. They signed him to a contract. Anna Jay and Ty Mello practically adopted the kid. And he had just an unbelievable amount of support from the locker room. Little buddy, if you need anything, I got your back. They all want to be there for Brody. They all want to make sure that I'm going to make sure your kid never needs anything. That's what we want to do for you. So I would assume that Bray Wyatt's kids are going to get the same treatment from all of his peers and his friends, and everybody that worked with him too. But that was the hardest part of that video package. But it was really, really well done, and excellent chronicling and highlighting of his entire career. That was about a decade long, that spanned several different kind of personalities, repackages, looks. He was on the verge to have one of the most unique careers, really did anyway, but could have wrestled even beyond this, and maybe, wrestled another 5 to 10 years if he wanted to. And who knows what he could have accomplished. And there was hope for that when Undertaker whispered in his ear at the beginning of the year that, oh, maybe that was passing on the supernatural gimmick to you. It's yours now. Take it and run with it. And unfortunately, he never got a chance to run with it. But after the video package was over, they come back to the arena where everybody is singing. He's got the whole world in his hands. They're showing the roster, who at this point is visibly shaken, as you see him here with Rowan and Triple H. And after the video package, a lot of them are just sobbing. You can see it in their faces. You can see their bodies quivering, just completely racked with grief. And when they focused in on the rocking chair, that was the hard part for me, especially when the lights went down, and just showing the chair there all by itself, I thought was really, really nice, and a really nice touch to this tribute. I'm hoping they do something empty rocking chair related on Raw on Monday, but we'll have to see. So after that lump in our throat passed, we're going to get our first match of the night. And I think it's perfect that the first guy that came out was Rey Mysterio, because who better to put a smile on your face than Rey Mysterio? He defeated Grayson Waller one-on-one. There was some interference from Austin Theory. Escobar came out to neutralize him, although Theory clipped him from behind and injured his knee. Rey came out to take care of Theory at that point. And in the ring, Rey did a little Bray Wyatt tribute with the running senton. I like that. Wound up beating Grayson with the 619 and dropping the dime on him for the win. And Rey got the victory there. There definitely was, I think there was supposed to be a Bloodline segment on this show with Jimmy Uso that was completely scrapped, and they might have dropped a match as well, because I think we only had 4 matches total. It was very heavy with tributes last night. We did have a WWE Women's Championship match, Io Sky defending against Zelina Vega. Zelina Vega was wearing her Backlash gear again. Io Sky got the win here with the moonsault, and that's the right call there. And then we had Cody Rhodes come out, and I'm wondering, had Bray Wyatt not passed away, if maybe this was going to open the show. It probably would have. Cody comes out to tribute Terry Funk, and of course, Cody's dad, Dusty, has a long history with Terry Funk. And Cody tells a story of being a kid in the Denver airport and hearing some crazy person yelling at his dad, who he was traveling with, calling him an egg-sucking dog. Remember the Dusty Sucks Eggs shirt? And the rivalry between Funk and Dusty in the 70s was pretty incredible. And that was pretty much a callback to that and a reference to that and all the fun they had back then. And they were always digging on each other in their promos, especially Dusty. I always felt like, even though it was part of the fun, I always felt like Dusty was holding some sort of a grudge against Funk personally. That's the way it always came off. But I always laughed the way they would take digs at each other, and the good old days of the egg sucking. That was fun. But he talked about Terry Funk, and he talked about the rub. And we talked about that on Thursday when we were tributing Terry, about how much he really enjoyed to give back. It wasn't like using your equity to give rub to one guy or two guys or a couple of guys. The dude spent his whole career doing that, right? All the way up literally until the end, just about. And Cody gave a really nice tribute. I think he was the perfect guy to really come out and tribute Terry Funk. He's the son of Dusty Rhodes. He probably has some interesting Funk stories and, probably the right guy to deliver that message and to deliver that tribute. They then took us to a Terry Funk video package. This one was a little bit different than Bray Wyatt. This one was narrated, but also really good. And again, I feel like Cody probably would have been the open of the show had Bray Wyatt not passed away. This is probably what we would have seen first. On SmackDown, Cody coming out, tributing Terry Funk, then going into the video package. Of course, this is after the 10-bell salute for Terry. Then Cody comes out, talks about Terry, and then they do the big video package perhaps. No, it might have been after the 10-bell salute. Then Cody comes out, does the promo. But pretty sure that first match might have been the Terry Funk tribute hardcore match with the Street Profits taking on the Brawling Brutes. Now, even though this match had what was the greatest fucking spear I have ever seen in my life. In my life. Goldberg, Edge, Roman, whoever the fuck else does a spear. Nobody has hit a spear the way Lashley hit his spear on Butch, on Pete Dunne. I don't even know. I couldn't even, didn't even feel like the laws of physics would allow what they did. It was almost like Spanish Fly looking. Can't describe it. You have to see it to know what I'm talking about. You guys saw it, right? Did that spear not blow your mind? Blew my mind. But for a hardcore match, this was a damn joke. Terry Funk would be spinning in his grave or urn wherever he is right now if he saw this, because this was very, very much not a Terry Funk hardcore match. The only weapon I believe used in this thing was the table that Ridge got put through when the Streets hit him with their finisher. By the way, still no new music. Didn't I say when they first aligned with Bobby Lashley, one of the first things I said on the podcast was like, sweet, finally we're going to get rid of that stupid music. But it's still there. So still the Solo Cup, still the same look and vibe. That needs to change, man. Needs to get a little bit more edgy, It's one of the biggest problems I had with Nia Jax when she was a heel. Her theme song was way too poppy, too babyfacey, Give her some Umaga sounding music. Have her come out there screaming, eating a raw chicken, something like that. But with the Street Profits, they need something similar. They need something badass. They need something they need something that strikes fear, or when they come out to the ring, your opponent's like, oh shit, I really don't want to fight these guys. That type of thing. So get on that, WWE, because that should probably change, because they look great with Bobby Lashley. They're all rocking the suits, and I think they need some new music. But in terms of that being a hardcore match, laughable. Not a hardcore match at all. Just a match with a table. That's all that was. After that, I think it was just pretty much the main event. That was the only other match on the show, right? We had the LA Knight promo first. And I like this because LA Knight, of course, has been bubbling in popularity, and fans have been really clamoring and calling for his push. And it felt like WWE started that at SummerSlam, won the Battle Royal. Now he's headed into this feud with The Miz. They have a match at Payback that he will win. And here, he was put in the Cody position. He was trusted to come out last. And he really is the right guy to come out and talk about Bray Wyatt last, because LA Knight was the person who Bray Wyatt had his final match with. Of course, they worked at the Royal Rumble, but they worked some live events. And I think the final match of Bray Wyatt's career was a live event match against LA Knight. And LA Knight came out, big ovation from the crowd. He talked about his rivalry with Bray. He praised him for getting him ready, for preparing him for anything, because that's what Bray taught him. And I didn't know it at the time, but what he was doing, he was getting me ready, was what he said. And then he said what I've already said twice tonight, that he was holding it together until he saw pics of Bray Wyatt's family and how that really breaks his heart. And he did a really great job, I think, tributing Bray Wyatt and the fact that he was the guy that they sent out there last, you know? He was the guy put in the situation that a John Cena would have been put in had he been around. Stone Cold Steve Austin came out the night after Owen Hart died, and he didn't even cut a promo. He just toasted him. And they had heat. They might have needed to send out somebody else. But LA Knight being put in that position of being trusted to go out there and cut a promo and tribute, you know, one of their fallen family members properly, they trusted him to do that because he's over, he gets reactions from the crowd. It worked out that he was Bray Wyatt's last opponent, and I thought he cut a beautiful promo. Then he has a match with Finn Balor that he wins clean. He wins it with the running superplex spot. Balor's, I think, maybe crouched on or climbing to the top rope. And LA Knight leaps up to the top, grabs him, doesn't botch it. It was perfect. Hits him with the superplex, and then blunt force trauma for the win and beat Finn Balor clean. I'm fine with that. He's a babyface. He's super over. This is a night more about Bray Wyatt than about wins and losses. And the wins and losses here really shouldn't mean much. I think last night was a way for WWE to, you know, kind of give fans something to celebrate or take their minds off of it with wrestling action. A lot of babyface victories here, or a couple of them, one to open and close the show anyway. And that was WWE's way of grieving. And it was their way of helping the fans grieve. So they just had a fun night of wrestling with some sprinkled tributes throughout and some nice moments. And that's really all they gave us last night. And I thought it was a very nice tribute to Bray Wyatt. Like I said, it would have been hard to focus on any angles anyway. I'm glad that they scrapped the bloodline. I would not have wanted to try to focus on that when all of this, because this isn't something that it happens and then 3 days later you're kind of over it. You know, this is going to be like heavily weighing on our minds for a while, you know, because that's just the way it goes. So it's just something that, you know, time heals all wounds. And, you know, when you move on and grief gets easier, the longer time goes by. But, you know, still, this is such a hugely shocking loss that it would be tough to really focus on some big storyline angle in the middle of the ring. Even if I was these wrestlers, if I was Roman and Jimmy and Heyman and those guys, I wouldn't be able to focus on doing that and being able to deliver and perform at that level when I've got, you know, this loss of my friend on my mind. And I guess I'll address this because some people have asked me. There's the video clip going around of our friend Denise interviewing Paul White, and she kind of puts him on the spot, asks him about Bray Wyatt. A couple people did this. She's not the only one. There were some others that were doing this too. And normally you wouldn't think that would be that big of a deal, but Paul White was noticeably shaken about it. He did not like the question. He answered it. Was well within his rights to walk away. He didn't. He was cool. Kind of looked at his watch and kind of shook his head a little bit. But you have to remember, they are not us. We are fans. We knew Bray Wyatt on a completely different level than they did. They worked with him. They knew him personally. They knew what his farts smelled like, that type of stuff. And we are just not, you know, we aren't the ones suffering the most here. They are. And I think in a situation like that, maybe you should either maybe not bring it up yet or ask off camera if it's okay to ask that question. Because if you're a wrestler who is trying to do your all-in duties, but you're also trying to process this horrible news of your friend dying, and then you just get hit in the face with, a journalist or a podcaster saying, hey, what about Bray Wyatt's death with a camera in your face? It's not something I'd want to deal with either. But at the same time, mistakes are made. I think social media needs to calm down. There's way too many imaginary enemies out there. When I look at what Denise did, I look at that from a rational person's perspective. Maybe not the best time to ask that. Hopefully a lesson was learned here. The other mouth-breathing, mouth-foaming, psychotic wrestling troll side of social media says, nope, no mistakes allowed ever. Straight to a men's prison for you, no parole for life. That's a little bit extreme. I think fans need to get a goddamn grip on these people that they hate for no reason. Nobody's perfect. Make a mistake, learn from it, move on. What the fuck? Using this, waiting in the wings to pounce on anything that you can use as ammunition against these people that a whole bunch of fucking losers have told you to hate is a terrible way to spend your time when we are dealing with a tragedy of this level. So I think anybody else that might be over in London right now, maybe think before you ask something like that, or maybe get permission. Hey, is it cool if I ask you about Bray Wyatt? I'm a journalist. It's my job. It's what I got to do. I have no choice. But try to be respectful of one's feelings as well, as you might be talking to somebody who might have a really close personal relationship with the person that died and might not want to talk about it right now, especially in today's day and age where, mental health is so important. If somebody doesn't want to talk about something, they shouldn't have to, especially something like this when we're dealing with a tragedy that's fresh. It's not like it's a week ago. This is fresh. A lot of the talent was finding out on the airplane, in the hotel, while they were eating. They might have woken up to this news. Who knows? And it's just, we all deal and process it in our own way. So I think we need to respect the friends and the peers of Bray Wyatt as well, to some degree, and not put them on the spot and expect that, they need to speak on it. They want to speak on it, they'll release a tribute video on social media like many of them have. So leave them alone. That's all I'm saying. Bray Wyatt's career was something else, man. Let's talk about some Bray Wyatt memories. Let me cruise to the chat here, see if we have... No, there's not going to be any Denise shaming here. We like Denise. Denise is our friend. I like Brian. I like Meltzer. Met them all, like them all. So I don't really have any issues with those guys. I know that there's frustrations in wrestling media, but honestly, my life is too busy to fucking get pissed about that stuff. I'm just a wrestling fan, a wrestling YouTuber, a podcaster. The last thing I'm going to do, I don't have time in my life to be mad at Dave Meltzer. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't have time in my life to be mad at him or Jean Ross Sapp or anybody. I consider them all friends. So I have no personal issue with these people whatsoever, but I'm not going to ignore that maybe Denise made a mistake. And Denise is an adult. She'll move on from it, move past her mistake the way adults do. She's not stupid. So no disparaging people here. That's not what this podcast is about. Hollywood Guy. Yo, man, thank you for that $10 earlier, dude. Appreciate it. Greg, it looks like the heart issues could be genetics because we almost lost Barry Windham. He suffered a major heart attack. It is sad to see both Bray and Funk. Yeah, I know Barry Windham has dealt with some stuff as well. The heart issues, genetics, I don't know. It was revealed, though, of course, we did find out that it was a heart attack. But that's another thing I'm not touching and I didn't really appreciate from social media, because we've seen that recently with some college athletes, or anybody young who maybe dies, and you get the Val Venuses of the world come out of the woodwork and start being fucking stupid. And that's not what this is about. Young people die all the time. And it's sad and it sucks every time it happens. And to speculate and, to watch a bunch of people without college degrees, some of them maybe even without high school diplomas, trying to act like heart specialists here and vaccine specialists is annoying. See a lot of that going on right now where it seems like they're all lawyers and scholars of the RICO Act and stuff. I'm like, oh, really? So that's a shame either way, especially something like a heart attack. It's just, my God. Let's talk a little bit about Bray Wyatt. Born Wyndham Lawrence Rotundo on May 23rd, 1987. May 23rd would be the date that Owen Hart would pass away. Ironically, I believe Brian Pillman's birthday is the day before Wyndham's. Of course, Bray Wyatt is the son of Mike Rotundo, who we all remember as IRS. He's a multi-time tag team champion in WWE, winning the titles a couple of times with Barry Windham back in the 80s. And I loved them as a team. They dropped the titles at WrestleMania 1, but would wind up winning them back. And they were great. I was a big fan of them as a kid. And Hulk Hogan's theme music was originally designed for them, but he stole it. So Bray is also the nephew of Barry Windham and Kendall Windham. Barry is Mike Rotundo's brother-in-law. And Bray, when he began wrestling, I guess he kind of knew this ahead of time. He was an amateur wrestler and won a state championship, I think, in amateur wrestling in like 2005, and got signed by FCW in 2009. And we saw him, I think, pop up on TV for the first time 2010 in the newly formed NXT, and Cody Rhodes was actually his pro, right? And that was the one where Cody was his pro and Miz was Daniel Bryan's, which is still funny to say out loud all these years later. And he was known as Husky Harris there, and teamed with Mike McGillicuddy, Mr. Perfect's son, and they were even instrumental in helping Wade Barrett defeat John Cena in that angle that forced John Cena to join the Nexus. But he didn't stay long there before he returned to FCW for about another year. He worked with Big E, Bo Dallas, Dean Ambrose, Corey Graves, Cesaro, Rusev. So as you can see, a lot of the main stars that we see today are all ones that came up in the era of Bray Wyatt and with that class. So he knew so many people. But, he kind of struggled to find his niche there until, they repackaged him as Bray Wyatt. So Husky Harris was dead. He was even doing the thing wrestling under the Jason mask for a brief period, even though it never made TV. And then they repackaged him as Bray Wyatt, and he debuted in 2012 with those vignettes, and he was wearing the hat and the shirt, and it was like that Robert De Niro, Cape Fear, Waylon Mercy type of gimmick, but way better than Waylon Mercy. Like his promos and his delivery and what he was saying, and the way the vignettes were edited and cut, and the flashes of light and all of that was really, really well done. And he was such a great character. Even in the NXT days, I think people started comparing his mic skills, his mic work, to Jake the Snake Roberts. And when he got injured that year in NXT, he was still able to be on TV, just cutting his promos. And that's when he formed the Wyatt family with Harper and Rowan as his first sons or brothers or whatever it was. And then the three of them together, that look with Harper and that dirty ass t-shirt and that crazy Bruiser Brody hair and those twitching ass eyes, like, my God. And then the mask and Rowan, like, it was such an amazing faction. I mean, they were having main roster call-up requests like almost immediately, because you knew that was something that was going to work. Like, that was a very well done presentation. I remember loving it. You guys were the ones, I think, that first informed me about, Greg, have you seen what's going on in NXT? You got to check this out. And when they got called up in 2013, they were having great matches right off the bat. I always remember in 2013 the Daniel Bryan stuff near the end of the year, when fans were really frustrated about the use of Daniel Bryan. And even though they really liked the Wyatt family, when the Wyatt family forced Daniel Bryan to join. And I remember doing a review that night. It was at the very, very end of 2013. I think it was on the last Raw of the year. And Daniel Bryan joined the Wyatt family, turning heel, when he was becoming one of the most popular wrestlers in WWE. Imagine if LA Knight would have turned heel last night or something. I'm like, right when he's about to explode, you're going to turn him heel. And I remember the fans being pissed. And luckily that would only last a couple of weeks. He would turn babyface and turn on the Wyatt family and attack Bray Wyatt a couple of weeks into 2014 in one of the biggest ovations and crowd reactions, I think, in modern history was that night. And just showed you how over really both of those guys were. And then Bray Wyatt beating Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble that year only added to the Daniel Bryan frustrations, and that's what really would help catapult him to the Occupy Raw that would send him into WrestleMania 30 to win the championship. But unfortunately for Wyatt, he would have something different to do at WrestleMania 30. But first, I think you guys help me out. Was Elimination Chamber 2014, 6-man match against The Shield, Bray Wyatt's best match, even though there was 5 other dudes in there? I mean, it's really hard to top that. That was, most fans still look back at that to this day as one of the best 6-man matches to ever exist. And that was, pretty sure that was that Anything Goes, or was that just a regular match that year? But they beat The Shield that night. And a lot of them feel that that was peak Wyatt family. They could not get, they weren't really ever any higher than that moment. That was just such an epic confrontation. The first time those two factions got together and came face to face, the way the fans were marking out. I remember at the time not thinking that that was possible with the characters that we had during that era, for the fans to get that behind two groups, two factions, both doing amazing work at the same time. Although I think the Shield stayed, a little more stable there than the Wyatt family did. But I remember that being such an incredible match. And then Bray Wyatt would then go into WrestleMania to face John Cena. And of course, John Cena beat him. A lot of people thought Bray Wyatt was going to win. A lot of people felt Bray Wyatt should have won. The rest of the show, you had the Shield beating some legends. You had Daniel Bryan wiping out the entire faction of Evolution by himself. And it seemed like the new crop was winning all of the matches, except for one, except for John Cena and Bray Wyatt. And of course, Greg, back in the day, defended it. My logic was, well, Bray Wyatt is working with John Cena. This is not a bad position to be in, and I still kind of feel that way because back then and still to this day, fans, when they get angry, cannot manage their emotions, and they get so fucking pissed that they bury any reality that actually exists in their argument with nonsense and hate and irrational anger and thinking and just going ape shit over it. And I was pointing out that, hey, there's worse spots to be in because, of course, from the fans' perspective, when Bray Wyatt loses a WrestleMania match against WWE's biggest star, probably getting the 3rd or 4th biggest payday on the show, that means he's buried. Biggest match of his night, more money than he's never made in his life, buried, according to the fans. And I'm like, you guys are all crazy. So I remember just, really staunchly defending it, using the logic of Bray is working with one of the top stars at WrestleMania. What the hell are you complaining about? And then the next month he would get a win over John Cena. But looking back at it now, I concede. You guys were right. You guys were right. He should have won. Bray Wyatt should have beaten John Cena at WrestleMania 30. Not only should Bray Wyatt have beaten John Cena at WrestleMania 30, he should have beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31 or worked with somebody that he could beat at WrestleMania 31. Another legend, another notch on his belt, another WrestleMania notch. John Cena one year, Undertaker the next. Think about what that would have done for his career, how that would have elevated him or catapulted him beyond what he was, because a lot of those losses, slowed down the career of Bray Wyatt. And we remember hearing reports about how Vince kind of looked at Bray Wyatt differently, because of how unique his character was. And he wasn't really worrying too much about his losses. He could kind of plug him back into the main event situation whenever he wanted. But, he definitely should have won some of these matches, at least the John Cena one, for sure. And he would get some revenge many years later at WrestleMania, but it's not the same. I think back at WrestleMania 30 now, I changed my vote. I changed my opinion. I do believe, and I agree with you guys now, looking back, that John Cena should have lost and done the job that night to Bray Wyatt. He did not. And like I said, he turned back up the next year to lose to Undertaker, in another match that felt like it slowed him down. Braun Strowman would join the Wyatt family in 2015. I'll never forget Braun Strowman's debut standing on the apron. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? That was awesome. They had the Brothers of Destruction match against Harper and Bray Wyatt at Survivor Series that year in 2015. That was good. And then the Randy Orton stuff happened after that. Some of that was good. Some of it was bad. I really enjoyed the program because it had a lot of different elements in it, and they would revisit this, of course, a couple of years later. But this original feud was much like the Daniel Bryan one, where kind of like Orton joined the Wyatt family. And then when you got into 2017, I think it was like Orton wins the Rumble. And then at the Elimination Chamber was when Bray Wyatt won the championship. And I remember being so happy about that it was way overdue, but at least he's gotten it. Now he's going to go into WrestleMania as champion to defend the title. And I remember at that time when we were doing reviews and stuff, I would say that, Bray Wyatt just won the title at Elimination Chamber. My belief was that they would not have Bray win the title just to drop it to Orton. I thought Wyatt was going to beat Randy Orton. Wyatt couldn't beat Cena at WrestleMania, couldn't beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and couldn't beat Randy Orton at WrestleMania either. He defends the title against Randy Orton. That's when they were projecting the bugs and the worms and all that stuff on the screen. It just came off as hokey. And Randy Orton wound up beating Bray Wyatt and winning the WWE title. This would lead to the House of Horrors match at Payback that Bray Wyatt would wind up winning that one. But the House of Horrors match was very crazy. And of course, they did the compound matches with the New Day. Those were really fun. Wyatt family and New Day were a trip. He had the feud with Woken Matt Hardy. They won the tag team titles together. But then when Matt Hardy got injured, that was kind of the last we saw of Bray Wyatt for close to a year, until it was around WrestleMania time of 2019 that we got those Firefly Funhouse segments with the teases that there's a horror villain underneath. And I remember when those first started, some fans were like, what the fuck, or whatever, and they were kind of mad, like it was going to be, this is just too silly, until you got that little flash of that horror mask. And then it was like, oh, okay. Oh, this can be really good. He's going to be Mr. Rogers here, but fucking Freddy in the ring. And that's awesome. And a lot of people were instantly on board, myself included. That's one thing Bray Wyatt and WWE did very well creatively, is starting hot. They just couldn't finish most times. But The Fiend, remember the enthusiasm? Even with Vince there making everybody's lives miserable, including the fans, we still had optimism for The Fiend. And of course, we know what happened there. And we had optimism this last time with the White Rabbit stuff too. It just feels like they start good, they don't finish well. But The Fiend debuted at SummerSlam, actually in an actual match against Finn Balor, and that was his first entrance, where we got the heavy metal version of the Wyatt family song, a remix. He's got that decapitated head lantern thing. He's got the mask, the lights. I mean, it was all so well done and so well presented. And he beat Finn Balor. That's what wound up sending Finn Balor back to NXT for a while, I believe. But it was like right after that they put him in there with Seth. And I remember we talked about it, thinking it was too soon to go right to the championship, because it just felt problematic if you did that. There was plenty of time to build this character. Granted, they were dealing with a horror movie villain type of character, and that's really hard to translate to real actual wrestling. So there's only so many things you can do, but I think they could have done a lot better than what they did. And they rushed him to the championship too fast. The Hell in the Cell match really made the fans mad. That was the one with the DQ, right? They disqualified Seth, and then I think Fiend would win it in Saudi Arabia, right? And then beat Seth for the championship there. And then after that was still what I consider one of the biggest travesties, one of the biggest and the dumbest and most frustrating and most WWE-like decisions that they've ever made. And it's the perfect example of why fans get so frustrated with this company and get so frustrated with Vince, and why I'm so fucking happy he's not around very much and I don't ever want to see his ass again, is because of shit like this. There is no way, if this situation, another situation like this comes up again, that Triple H would make that call to, a gimmick that you have invested so much time, money, and creative resources in, only to have him squashed by Oldberg in Saudi Arabia. It's like, what are you doing? It made no sense. I've never seen a match make less sense in my life than that one. Don't even book the match. There was not even a reason to do that. But they had to have fucking Goldberg, then going into WrestleMania 20. I think the whole point is that they wanted Roman to beat him, but then Roman backed out because COVID happened. And then they had just had to give the belt to Braun Strowman at WrestleMania. Just, oh my God. It would have been much better if Bray Wyatt would have gone into the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena as the champion. That could have been your main event. Well, I guess you had to have Drew be the main event, right? So yeah, man, it's still semi-main. Still could be where it was. But have the match for the title. And that was really entertaining. That Firefly Funhouse match is the only thing I remember from 2020 with any positive light at all. I mean, COVID era anyway. Edge coming back was the best moment of that year for me. But the rest of the year, the COVID, the empty arenas, the Thunderdomes, all that stuff, it's a time I like to forget. But the Funhouse match is not something you can forget because it was really awesome. All the different versions of John Cena. We saw the Muscle Man dance and just really getting a crazy look at how versatile the creativity of Bray Wyatt is. He can be a scary, demonic, sinister horror movie villain, and he can also be somebody that you feel completely comfortable allowing to play with your 3-year-old children. That is something you don't see every day. And it's not like just the person, his character is capable of doing that. And that's pretty fucking awesome. The Firefly Funhouse characters coming to life. You know, Mercy the Buzzard and the Rabbit and the Ramblin' Rabbit. He had his own little Harley Quinn there, and adorable Alexa Bliss and their relationship and all the things they did together I thought was really well done, especially that early transition of Alexa Bliss after that first interaction with Bray, and then she kind of got possessed by him, and then her hair was kind of out of place a few weeks and just having these funny looks. I just loved all of that. I'm like, this is so great, you know? But again, that kind of shit the bed too. Because then the Fiend got burned up by Randy Orton, got burned, and then came back as a melted swamp thing looking thing. And then they had the WrestleMania match where Alexa Bliss showed back up. And he lost. And it sucked. And that was it. I don't think we saw Bray Wyatt again until he returned at Extreme Rules last year. Had a new mask, but had the lantern back. And like I said, cut one of my favorite Bray Wyatt promos of all time right after he returned and talked to the fans as himself, you know, and thanked them for their support, thanked them for their support, and thanked us for our support. And it was amazing. And I had high hopes for the Uncle Howdy stuff. I think I got myself mad when I would have sworn we read the reports online that creatively they have plans for Bray Wyatt all the way through WrestleMania. Like basically they know what they're going to do. And I had been saying for a long time that if you're going to do a really complex angle or story like this, you have to have like an end game, you know, because otherwise it's going to shit the bed the way the Higher Power did and so many other great ideas that, you know, that just fizzled out. And you have to have like some sort of creative idea of what you're going to do if you're going to start bringing Firefly Funhouse characters to life and having an Uncle Howdy out in this weird mask and kind of two versions of Bray Wyatt and you don't know what's going on. You can't just wing this stuff. And then when you got to the end of the year and it was dragging out, next thing you know, he's working with LA Knight and Bobby Lashley then is going to happen. And then that's when Bray Wyatt disappears. And of course, you know, he would tragically pass away a couple days ago. But the creative stuff there, I just wish could have been better for him. But, you know, with Triple H, I think it would have been had he been able to actually come back. We've heard it was just like a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it on the podcast. Bray Wyatt rumored to be returning to the ring. Creative plans are already starting to be worked out for him, or merchandise stuff or whatever. So they had him coming back. I think that's what makes his death even that much more shocking is that, yeah, he might not have been on TV right now. We know he's been absent, but we heard the exact opposite of what wound up happening. We heard actually good news about him. Good news about Bray Wyatt. I think I titled my podcast that just a couple weeks ago. Good news regarding Bray Wyatt. And just days later, he's no longer with us. And it's a shame. But that's kind of all I wanted to kind of do today was just kind of talk about my memories of his career. I did most of this by memory. I was surprised how much I actually did remember. Typing out just memories of his career. I'm sure I left out a lot. I just wanted to talk about his career in an overall sense. Some of the highs and lows. what could have been done better and what was done really right and really well. And what a career it was. I mean, we got him for about 10 years, and we got really, really good and interesting and unique stuff from Bray Wyatt. One thing about Bray Wyatt that we can all agree on is that when you look back at him compared to all other wrestlers, he was for sure very different. You know, he certainly wasn't a cookie cutter type of guy, didn't wrestle the same style, didn't have the same look. He had a different look, a different approach, a different character. He went about literally everything that he did differently than what fans are used to, you know, and that's something that's a credit to him. And I'll be the first one to nominate Bray Wyatt for the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2024 at WrestleMania 40. I absolutely think he should go in. I absolutely think they should put him in. And that's going to be emotional when they do, especially with JoJo and the kids and all that, their presence. I'm sure they're all going to be taken care of financially. It's more of a mental and emotional thing I'm more thinking about with them. Not too worried about them financially. WWE will do them right. But that doesn't matter. They're already doing okay with that. Their life's not going to change in terms of that. But they have a big empty hole now. And that's just horrible. But yeah, I kind of feel like you guys agree. WrestleMania 40 Hall of Fame. Let's do it. Let's knock out some super chats here. Good to see you, Dan Price. Welcome. Hollywood Guy, 5 more from you. I'm going to kind of go backwards here. I do agree Bray should have had a massive push and more title reigns. WWE dropped the ball. They definitely did and they didn't. They did try and they put some effort in Bray Wyatt. I think a lot of it was just the execution and just some creative mistakes that, you know, his career could have been even greater than it was. And it was still really good, a really, really good Hall of Fame worthy career. But I feel like he, you know, actually could have been bigger. But he'll be immortalized now. That's for sure. All right, that was my final super chat there. He put up a Bray tribute, but is also begging for his job in the same post. Who are we talking about here? I'm trying to figure out who we're even discussing there. I don't know. But anyway, thank you for being here this afternoon. I got to get out of here now and head to work. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. This is the first time really I've had a chance to talk about Bray Wyatt since finding out live on stream in our Terry Funk tribute and our all-in predictions. First time to really talk about this and process it and, you know, grieve with all of you. That's what we are here to do today. So I thank you for that. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited. This is going to put a cap for now on the Bray Wyatt sadness. Tomorrow, it's all about joy. It's all about celebration. AEW is going into Wembley Stadium to pack out 81,000 plus people in there. It's going to be just an unbelievable visual. I am stoked for it. The only thing that sucks for me is that I have to wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning, which Greg does not like to do because I work nights and I stay up late. So I'm going to have to drag my ass up out of bed at 9 o'clock to get here in front of the computer to watch All In. We will be doing a review after the show, but it's not going to be immediately after the show. Probably going to wait an hour, maybe even 2 before we come up here. So keep an eye on the channel. The link, by the way, is already up on the main page right now, so save it for tomorrow and just eyeball it tomorrow. I might change the start time. Currently, right now, I think I have it set for 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, but it might be an hour or so before that. So hopefully tomorrow you can join us just an hour or 2 after All In. We'll be up here for a full show review. We'll hang out, we'll talk about it, and hopefully we will be talking about one hell of a successful show with some great matches, some great swerves, and some great surprises. I can't wait to see what happens. But you guys have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon and evening, and I will catch you tomorrow night for our AEW All In review. Thank you so much for being here.